Welcome everyone to this video today on evaluation and analysis of the data for boards. This is really about reviewing what happened and comparing with the plans, and this is part of a video series for Community Action Agency board members on ROMA. So the objectives of this video will help the board to identify agency performance, what is working and what is not, the why behind the performance, how do they find that out, and then what does it all mean. Our presenters for today, I am Courtney Kohler. I'm a Senior Associate for the National Community Action Partnership. We also have with us today Dr. Barbara Mooney. She's the Director of the Association for Nationally Certified ROMA Trainers and Implementers. We also have Frederick Richmond. He's the Vice President of the Association for Nationally Certified ROMA Trainers and Implementers, as well as the President for the Center for Applied Management Practices. As mentioned, this is part of a series for Community Action Agency board members on ROMA and how to implement that within the agency from the board's perspective. So it helps you to have a deeper understanding of how your community action agency can increase its capacity and results, also how to meet and exceed the organizational standards. And these different components of the series can be used as standalone training modules or within a series. They can be done in a specific order, as in the ROMA cycle, or in any order you would prefer. So today we're going to be focusing on evaluation. And evaluation is typically done at the end of the program year. We usually think of evaluation as looking back, which helps us to consider the outcome or the value of what is being reviewed using established criteria, such as benchmarks that has been established in the planning phase. And also the data also should be ongoing throughout the cycle. And the organizational standards combine these two activities. So there's a couple organizational standards in Category 9 that are related to this. Standard 9.3. This is the one about evaluation of data analysis and that it should be presented at least once in a program year to the board. So it says the organization has presented to the governing board for review or action within the last 12 months an analysis of the agency's outcomes and any operational or strategic program adjustments and improvements identified as necessary. Another standard that is part of this process is more related to ongoing analysis. So standard 6.5 says the governing board or advisory body has received an update on the process or the progress meeting of goals of the strategic plan or a comparable planning document in the last 12 months. So these periodic updates are very important, and they provide an opportunity for ongoing evaluation and analysis of the agency's progress. So this training segment, we're going to use the term analysis to encompass both of these activities. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Fred to talk more about why analysis of data is important.
Thank you for that excellent introduction, Courtney. So we're going to look at why analysis of data is important. And throughout the cycle, there's ongoing data collection from the agency, staff, et cetera. And essentially, what do we do with this data? Well, we want to look at it and understand how the organization works. So we use the data, the analysis of the data, understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, how well we are doing it, and essentially what is happening in day-to-day. Good data analysis identifies the type of decisions and provides information for decision makers. And it essentially, when you analyze data, it may change the things that you think you were doing. You might want to think about things differently. So if we think about analysis, it is a process of breaking complex topics into parts to get a better understanding. It's the process of taking raw data and turning it into information. Data doesn't speak. Essentially, we need to look at it and interpret it. And it's ongoing. It is part of the entire ROMA cycle. As a board member, you are not expected to be engaged in the actual data collection and measurement, but you need to be informed, and board members need to understand the processes and why they are important. If we are moving towards a data-centric organization, essentially it is responsibility of the board to foster the data-centric approach and to explain why they're interested in the value of analysis to the agency staff, management, et cetera. And at the end of the day, again, good analysis supports good decision-making. We need to know, for example, if the services and strategies are meeting the goal in the projected timeframes. That was part of that planning process. What type of decisions do we need to make going forward? Do we need additional support for successful programs? Do we need to eliminate or reduce a program that may not be having as much success? So all of these are the things that we ask ourselves, the specific questions about the data. Let's take a look at the next slide. Board roles. Essentially, at a minimum each year, and again, ideally this is an ongoing activity, the board receives an analysis of the outcomes achieved or expected by the agency, and essentially how the organization is working, and any suggestions for improvement. Essentially, we're trying to support what we call a data-centric culture, which means that the board and the organization enhances its decision-making by the collection analysis of data. We have organizational standard 9.5 that states that a board must get a report on outcomes the agency achieved and the context in which those outcomes achieved. So we're talking about operational and strategic program performance. So it's not just getting a report, it's what's behind that report. It's the analysis that goes into that. So it is the board, while it doesn't conduct the activity, it participates in understanding the analysis and applies that analysis to decision making. So for an example, say that the agency has a report that says 300 individuals got jobs. Some of the questions that they might ask is, how did we help those individuals get jobs? What type of jobs were they? Are they part-time, full-time? This is the analysis that helps target. Did those jobs help move people out of poverty? So these are some of the suggestions that an active and healthy board would be engaged in. Let's take a look at the next step here. So how do we prepare for data analysis? We use terms like completeness, accurate, reliable, timely. These are all factors that go into data collection and analysis. And we need to identify ahead of time what are the questions that we want to answer. Numbers don't have a voice. They don't speak to you. You have to address data. You have to synthesize it to turn it into information. The questions have to be done ahead of time. So when we're talking about this, we are talking about good data. It's important, again, that those four measures, completeness, accuracy, reliability, and timeliness, are met or else the data is no good. There are two organizational standards that address this. 9.1, that the organization, the Community Action Agency, has a system in place to track and report, essentially demographic services outcomes, services, and then standard 9.2 is essentially a system in place to track family, agency, and or community outcomes. We introduced the word aggregation, which means bringing things together. So if we have data on one client, we need to look at all the clients in the agency or all the clients in a program and analyze that data. That helps us understand if the programs were successful, who the people served, who benefited, et cetera. So aggregation brings facts and observations, experiences together with hard data together. So let's take a look at the next slide. As we all know, different funding streams are part of the Community Action Agency way of operation. And we also know that specific funders at times require specific databases in their own data and their own outcomes and their own targets. What we need to do is integrate these into the overall operation. We can't just look at the targets for one. Essentially, it's the analogy might be teaching to the test. We're not teaching to the test there. We're integrating this all together. We are looking at a whole agency approach. So while we are required to provide specific numbers as a condition of the funding of the agency, we also want to take the opportunity and see how that program fits into the overall organizational framework and service delivery of the agency. Tend to think of it as a whole agency approach, that not only are there targets for the program, but targets for the agency as a whole. So essentially, we may have to have different audiences and produce outcomes, but we want to take it as an opportunity to integrate a particular program into all the other program services provided by the agency. So let's take a look at the next slide. It's a very simple visual. It's basically a funnel, and if we put into our funnel our figures, our numbers, our facts, and our stories, and we integrate that all together and aggregate it, at the end of the day, we get useful information. So I'd like to turn this over to Barbara now.
Thanks, Fred. And I think it's important to keep stressing throughout these different segments of the training that that this is really about the whole agency, what your agency does. And so to really be able to understand what your whole agency does, you have to really identify some good questions that are going to help you make meaning from the data. So we have a few questions here, some sample questions that you might want to answer with your data. The first one, did we do what we thought we would do? I mean, I think that's one of the most important things that you'll want to know. It's not good enough just to get a report that has numbers, but you have to be able to say whether that report tells you that you've done what you thought you would do. There are a number of other questions on this slide that we're going to talk more about at some other point, but looking at the last two, does our analysis of the data show that we need to do some additional resources in order to make our activities successful? And the last one is a question, did something unexpected happen that influenced the outcome? So as we look at the data and figure out what happened, why was it different from what we thought? Was there something unexpected that happened? So look more closely at a couple of the questions. What services produce the outcome or the results? This is that big picture thinking. And again, as Fred just said, where the results of one program carried over into additional results from additional programs. Are we tracking the connection that these multiple services for customers are making and the outcomes that they're producing? And then who achieved those results? What was the age group that was most successful, or the income level, or the background? What was it about those individuals who achieved success that might give us some indications of how we could improve our services going forward? And then was there one outcome that was achieved? Did they achieve others? And how many actually achieved other outcomes? Another area for analysis that's really about the agency's ability. This is something to look at to say, does our agency really understand what we do? Do we know how to project our outcomes? So the relationship between the number of outcomes you projected and the number of outcomes that you actually achieved is a percentage that shows your agency's ability to target. We compared the projected indicators with the actual indicators in the report section. Now we're going to look at that a little bit more closely. We talked about what we expected from our after-school program, our job training program, and our rental assistance program, and then we see what we actually did. So the actual indicators there are about customer success, about the success of the students, the participants, the families. But what we want to look at is our agency success. This is auto-calculated for you in the annual report. So as the agency is entering data about actual accomplishmans, there's an auto-calculation process. But we thought it's important for you to understand how this information is viewed, so that you're not looking at these and saying, oh well, the second bullet there where 20 actually got jobs and we only projected 15, that means that we had 133% success rate. So that's much better than the first one where 35 actually improved grades and we thought that 40 would. And that was only an 87% success rate. But we're looking at the relationship between what we thought we would do and what we did do as a range of between 80 and 120% in this area, and it means that if you are underestimating your performance or lowballing your expectations so that it looks like you're doing a better job, this really demonstrates that you don't know your services and what they will produce. So it can mean that you haven't paid attention to some aspect of the program, or that you're trying to, you just want to look like you're more successful, and that doesn't show high quality agency capacity. There's always a way to explain the differences. So if you didn't get more, or if you got more, there's always some reason. It's that unexpected, something unexpected that came up that we talked about in the last slide. So if you got more people jobs, maybe it was because there was a new business in town that needed employees. If you got fewer jobs, maybe you had a job, maybe you lost a business in the job market. And so you have to understand how those things work together. I'm going to turn this back over to Fred to talk about using this information to make decisions.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, we have a fun graphic here, and it is frankly not as complicated as that. At the end of the day, the reason we conduct analysis is to improve the quality of the services and to produce results. And we have to apply it. The key word here is application. Essentially, we do not analyze data in a vacuum. We need to look at it objectively, and we need to look at it honestly to basically say, how can we learn from the analysis and apply what we learn to our programs and services? For example, if there was a trend, why did the trend change? Did a population change? What else do we need to know? So essentially, at the end of the day, analysis helps improve our knowledge about the issue. Edward Deming, well-known management, helped organize manufacturing and change the way, and it realized that it wasn't about the parts and pieces, it was about the management of an organization. And one of his quotes are, and it's simply to read, "Without data, all anyone has available to make a decision are opinions. Data elevates the probability that you'll make the right decision." We're all aware that in the way we operate, we make decisions all day long. Sometimes we have to make decisions on the cuff, but the fact is that we will make a better decision and a correct decision if we have data and the analysis of data to support it. Analysis equals action. So built into the culture of a data-centric agency is the expectation that doing analysis will lead to its application or action. So essentially, we rely on effective analysis and interpretation of data to help organize and manage our program or services. We make meaning out of it to decide what are the appropriate actions to take. And we know that for high-performing agencies, we use that information gained from data analysis to improve results for families and their communities. So essentially, data must be turned into information to support decision-making. Every day, there are decisions at the operational level, and we apply the analysis of the data that we learned. For the board, long-term strategic decisions should be based on the analysis of facts that can be sourced back to reliable and accessible data, those four issues: completeness, timely, etc. And lastly, it is the application of that analysis to the agency's actions that will improve service delivery, how our programs and services are managed, and at the end, to produce better results for our families and communities. So I'll turn this back over to Barbara.
So at this point in the cycle, we really want to stress the importance of the cyclical nature of this process of ROMA. Now that you've got some analysis happening of the data, you answered some questions, you probably have more questions now. What new information do you need to get? You look back at your community needs assessment and you say, oh, we found out that this neighborhood, we serve more people from this neighborhood, but we really don't have any surveys from that neighborhood. So as we look at our next needs assessment, we may want to look at some different things. So here's some questions that you might ask yourself. What other data do you need to collect that you haven't collected before? Maybe you haven't asked about whether individuals are veterans or not, and now you know that that's something, an important piece of data that you want to ask about. What was missing from your previous assessment that you can add in now? And who do you want to gather information from? Are there different people that you want to gather information from? And as you look at your data, you look at your analysis, you will come up with other thoughts that can help you improve your needs assessment the next time around. A couple things to end with here, some action steps for you. Really be thinking about the way that you get reports. Are the reports useful to you? Is the information aggregated in a way that helps you do the kind of analysis that we've just talked about now? Does it help you understand the count of services? Does it help you to compare what's happened before or what's happening in different areas? And do you see any trends? So your reports have to be useful, and it's up to you as board members to make sure that you ask for reports that are useful. Is there a system in place that the staff is looking at the data in a way of making meaning that they can share with you? Do the projected indicators and actual indicators help you to understand what's happened? Can you use the data analysis as decision-making fodder for your activities going forward? Are you going to make your decisions based on that, or are you just going to do what you've always done? And we suggest no. You want to use the analysis data to base your decisions on, and then to put those decisions into action. And finally, that concept of asking what else you need to know with the next community assessment process. Courtney?
Sure. Thank you, Barbara. So in closing, just want to let you all know of different resources that are available out there. Encourage you to use the remaining components of the ROMA for Boards training series. Also want to thank Barbara and Fred for this presentation today. And thank you to all the local Community Action Agency board members for your time and service to community action. You can go to www.communityactionpartnership.com and go to our resource library for additional resources around board governance, as well as the various components of this training, which also includes some facilitator guides that you can reference this material in. So thank you all for your time today, and hope you have a great day.